Hi, good morning. I have a couple quick thoughts to just rattle through, and then I'm going to pull one starseed oracle, and then the video will be over. Today, the message is about mission work in the dream space. What does that mean? A lot of people experience glimpses into past lives via the dream space. That's how we see into them. Really, it's just what the conscious mind is too active to really discern, and it's when the brain state is allowing of all of these things that we experience after we wake as just a dream. Like we flatten the entire experience that happens outside of our 3D conscious reality. We flatten all of that and we conflate these different levels of consciousness that are different, quite different, in fact, in different circumstances. So I do think that sometimes when we have dreams, and I've been talking, or I did talk, 111 on the clock, about Mintaka, one of these cards, Season Mintaka. Mintaka is like an old ancient kingdom, just like Atlantis, Lemuria, Mu, these lost kingdoms, right? They're all mythical, or are they? We seem to have a lot of people all over the world, having memories, having dreams, getting insight, thinking about these things that are very mythical to the human on earth today. But there's a collective memory of those things. And so the message is to pay attention to the dreams. But the second part of this message is that beyond past life memories that can be accessed through dreams, something that a lot of people do, particularly if you are an old soul or a light worker or a starseed, is that your soul, which is a timeless thing, your soul in this life, your soul in a different life, is the same. It's just the vessel and the incarnation that's going to differ, or your your home base where you're born into. But the soul, if you have a high soul contract like that, where you do have a lot of work, or you're going to impact the lives of like many people, maybe not in just one life, but over time, right? Through your entire soul's journey, through this web of unfolding, creation and the whole network of energy realizing itself through these infinite incarnations that we walk side by side together. You might experience something in dreams where you're dreaming of accidents or apocalyptic areas or people in dire conditions, but you're helping. If you have dreams like that ever, then that's a very strong indicator that you have mission work at a spiritual level and other simultaneous timelines, dimensions, or realities. I've had this countless times, but the one that's the most crisp in my mind, particularly because I have an affinity for trains, train tracks, and the metaphors about parallel thoughts of, two tracks running side by side, being very different, having different endpoints. Little railroad tracks right there, and the R&R for railroad crossing with the two white flags. It's the whole thing. I was at the wreckage of a train car, and I was pulling bodies out of it. I was helping people. Very interesting, because I was aware of the fact that I was something of an angel. I was non-physical, but I was in this place. So my ability to access these people was like, it's not like somebody with a, what do you call those? Not a grappling hook, a reverse one that comes down out of a helicopter, and like deploys a guy who pulls somebody out of the ocean or something, Not like that. It was a non-physical access point, above this wreckage to be able to kind of swoop in. And the people, several of them were dead, but I was helping their spirits, or the quanta, just like I've talked about in the past with helping the quanta, or the life force that basically remains in a, roadkill, helping that exit the density of the physical body that's left behind. I do that when I'm driving, like that. So it was actually helping souls pass out of this, the ending of their incarnational reality in whatever timeline that I was visiting. But that one stands out to me, and I remembered it very crisply. So be aware of that right now. A lot of that has to a lot of that comes from the collective expansion of consciousness more and more people, I mean, those dreams, I've been having those for years, right? They start to kind of peter in. These things are intensifying for everybody, but how we think about them and what we think is going on is going to impact the way we receive and experience the impact of that within our own energy, and how it either, awakens you or makes you feel like you're crazy and need psychiatric help. And the other thing I wanted to talk about that's interesting along those lines is that it is like, in some cases, so if you have seen the show Sense8 on Netflix, I honestly never watched the whole thing, haven't seen it in years, but I really liked it conceptually for how it talks about interconnected realities, almost like the group, these 8 individuals who could switch places physically and suddenly be in each other's bodies because one person had a skill set or something that could solve the other person's problem. It was like they were 8 souls migrating between 8 physical vessels, all completing the shared endeavor of trying to, make it through life's challenges and stuff. I like that, even though, like with anything that comes out and is, there's always like adjacent things that still cast out those like very accurate, interesting, or thought-provoking narratives that make me feel like they're still not exemplifying things the way that they really are, and the way that they're felt and experienced by the collective today. So my theory a while ago, a few years ago, was like, maybe all of the places that I dream of, or all of the realities that I may access in order to do what it is that I do, that many people do when they're dreaming, where your soul goes and helps others, maybe the destinations that I even go to are the places, the timelines, the other worlds, the other points in history on human Earth where I already had past lives. Maybe I already had a past life in that time period or in that place. And that's why I have a connection to be able to even go back there. Maybe I'm actually bending the quanta, like my soul in this life as me is able to hop outside time and space, as we all are, go back in the space-time continuum and go to a reality where I had a past life, but I'm not physical in that life now. I'm here. But because there's a connection to that point, right? Or you could think about this from the perspective of like Akash, or one person's Akashic records. Akashic records is all existence, all phenomena, all lives. But as individuals, Akash is, I think of it as like a spiritual thumbprint. Unique and unique and detailed and specific. Snowflake stuff. So I've flexed that theory a little bit. I don't think that's entirely accurate. I think that as you ascend, you have access to places where you have not had lives in the past. But it's interesting because I was talking with a friend recently about, is it past life? Is it mission work? It could be both. I truly believe that it could be both, and that there's a reason for that, especially because a lot of the spiritual gifts, psychic gifts, certain kinds of skill sets that we're not super accustomed to valuing in today's culture, they were known. Certain abilities were known in very different ways and valued very differently. And so a lot of people right now their souls might be interacting with those timelines in order to reawaken things. Even if your conscious mind does not remember it, even if you never remember your dreams, that could be happening right now. And you might be able to feel, if that's the case, by checking in with how things are changing. I think that there's a lot of things that come, it's like a trickle down, right? From the oversoul, from the higher self, and then like eventually it hits our conscious mind. We take action, but it comes from the subconscious to the conscious in a way where it's like we really can't, in our conscious minds, grasp and understand certain aspects of what is being filtered into humanity. I keep seeing it as somebody, like a balloon with the hose in it, and it's a elastic balloon or plastic or whatever you call that. What is that called? What's that stretchy material called? Latex? So it has such a capacity to swell and expand, and the water pressure, this bursting at the seams, that is how the energy is filtering into our reality right now. We're not going to break. We're not going to burst. We actually have an ever-present expansion ability, but it's like sparks flying off of it, right? The back to chemical and mechanical erosion, it's the kinetic and potential energy. There's think about also hydropower plants. I'm seeing the amount of power that wind or water can generate, these natural forces that move elementally in the world. The energy expansion is like that. And the best visual or energy that I can recommend to connect to right now is honey. Honey. I love honey. If nothing else, as a thought experiment. Why? Because when I talk about elemental energy, which I'll be doing more in the future, I've done it a little bit in the past, but I kind of believe we're going to see a world eventually where there's going to be kids who are like little airbenders, genuinely. If you don't know that cartoon, everybody knows that cartoon. If you don't, you should go watch it. So much truth in that beautiful little kids cartoon. Again, so many of the most purest representations of certain messaging around very real, magical, spiritual concepts are done through kids shows. Because then adults think that stuff is just childish and for kids, and it's not. And it's easy to think about, conjure. If I'm sitting outside with a Jedi master, me and Yoda or whoever, my higher self, I'm out in a field and I'm thinking about my energy, my body's energy. What do I need? Maybe I need, from an intuitive perspective, spaciousness. I feel suffocated. I connect with air elementals. I experience and visualize and work with my own energy around the expansion of it. If I've been feeling suffocated, right? There's an antidote, just like I was talking about yesterday with coupling energy. When there arises confusion, the other side of that is well, now we need clarity, problem, solution, departure, arrival, death, rebirth. And I think that with honey, it's not quite earth, it's not quite liquid. And it calls to mind, and therefore to body, it calls to mind, and therefore embodiment and the spiritual quality of it, something slow, delicate, sweet, and all-encompassing. If you drip honey over my brick wall here, there's going to be no little spot on its slime trail as it slides down untouched. And it's thorough in that way. And something that is very interesting, I mentioned months ago that I had found a YouTube channel, and because I get heavy dyslexia when I'm channeling, I say things totally wrong or the opposite way without realizing it, because my brain is moving pretty quickly and it's hard to translate everything accurately. I called her Goddess of the Oracle. That's wrong. It's Oracle of the Goddess. She is an oracle for goddess energy streams. And I said it at the time, and I'll say it again. If that's not your thing, if you don't resonate with it, and if it's not for you or in your belief system at all, then that's okay. But it deeply resonates with me and my energy to the point where if I listen to her recordings, they are transmissions to activate certain things and deprogram certain distortions in feminine and masculine sexual energy, which is life force energy. And those distortions is a large part of what is keeping humanity stuck in certain patterns right now. So I've been listening to them for months, and there's sort of a timetable, and the Anima Uraeus, I think is what she goes by. She has said, it is time now. I'm just kind of along for the ride. I listen to them if I'm going to sleep, or, some days I miss them, and then I go back and I listen to them later. And I find them very clarifying, very healing, and very activating. And she reached this point where she was like, now you're going to be kind of on your own. And they go by the moon cycle, by the way, where you're going to be able to access this energy, channel directly from this source, this energy that you've been connecting with during these meditations, independently, without the facilitation of the oracle to bring the frequency into the space. And she's a very interesting woman, by the way, too. You would watch her videos and be like, oh, it's, you know, however people think or judge, right? Automatically. It's some hippie chick who is whatever. I don't know. She had a very interesting life. A lot of trauma and abuse and struggle and hardship and tragedy, and was experiencing a lot of passages with dark feminine energy, which I have experienced embodying as well. I think many of us have, right? We walk through our own karma and learn our own lessons in the way that is going to be the most illuminating for our soul, where we're at. And, you know, she got into exotic dancing and all sorts of things where she was being abused and in bad situations, but she's awoken to a different part of her journey, and provides these transmissions. Why am I talking about her at length? It'll come back to me. Maybe it won't. I have to pause the video and go get that thought loop real quick because I got too far away from my thought. I remember because I was talking about honey. Okay, and yeah, the way that her channel has left off is that it is, for the people that have been tuning into her videos, a time to kind of sit and try to access that frequency independently of her facilitation of it. So that is what I have been doing. But she described goddess energy. And she's also somebody who's had the past lives and memories to be able to recall certain gifts that she is bringing to this incarnation. So they don't make sense to some people. It's all about resonance, right? And accepting. We have a lot of people in the world today who love their faith and it saves them and it helps them, but that's not enough. They must have other people do it that way too. And we're, you know, very, as a people, into casting people out and stuff, you know, like if you're a channel in any way, then that's not real, that's not right. They're false prophets, you're channeling demons. And to be honest with you, I've shared this in the past before, I stepped back from all sorts of things for a while to be like, I want to make sure that none of that's true. You know, there is dark and light to all things as we experience them on earth, because this is a dualistic reality, and people will talk about the New Age cult and be like, that's a tactic of Satan. Because if you convince people that there is both good and bad, then it allows for the bad to prosper, or whatever people say. That's a distortion. There's just so many distortions and things out there trying to prevent people from being able to stand firmly in something that does help them, make them feel better, and doesn't keep them stuck and trapped. And so, anyway, I'm always open and I'm always trying new things. And when things stop resonating with me, I move away from them. And she talked about goddess energy as being like honey because it's very slow. And my personal experience, as I talked about last week, or maybe it was the week before, I can tell if I'm not grounded enough, or I'm not in my wise center enough when I get super urgent, or I have urgency behind what I'm doing. Because urgency is this false thing. I know there are deadlines and things that must urgently be completed, and we are wired to be able to respond in a fight or flight manner when the situation calls of it. But the way that we're addicted to our own stress hormones and chemicals these days, we truly are. I was talking to somebody who went on a tropical vacation recently, and they were telling me about loving it, but not quite being like, oh, I read a book, but then I got kind of antsy, not really being able to relax fully, even when we have the opportunity to. I think about so many people, they work tirelessly for years on end, you know, to be able to take that vacation, eventually to be able to take the kids with them on that vacation, you know, and the whole thing is like, okay, so when you get there, can you relax? And it's important to remember just how much a lot of the emergencies around us are programmed. A way of being that is slow and measured is super liberating. And I've been working with that reminder to help me stay even keel and level-headed and grounded during all of the shifts that are happening right now. So I've been shuffling these cards the whole time I've been speaking. Let's see what is on the top. Star Brothers, Orus energy, protection, loyalty, safety, and trust. This card came out a few weeks ago. I'm going to get one from the bottom. Was that all my messages for the dream stuff? Let me just finish one quick thought around the beings, right? So people say anything that's not God or Jesus or under God, you know, the liminal spaces, the other dimensions, right? Because God is oneness in all creation, and it's the life source, or the oneness where everything, there's no matter at all, because there's no separation. In this reality, there's a high level of separation between particles and how things appear, like we're all separate people. If you go into an angelic realm, they don't have to be, you know, angels with wings. There's certain ways that beings can present, because they can group up and become, there's less division between the minds, between the bodies, if there's even need for them. And we can see this as well in other extraterrestrial races who are ascended from the place we find ourselves in humanity, where they don't live a strictly 3D reality. Maybe they have physical 3D bodies that we would be able to see, but they do communicate with one another fully telepathically, or they don't need to eat a lot of 3D dense food, because their existence is like the consciousness technology from ancient world ascended societies. So with the angels, for instance, I know that that's not necessarily something that everybody believes in, and there's no pressure to, but I do take issue with it when people say it's just, you know, it's not possible. If you think that you work with angels or anything of the sort, then it's misled and misguided, because that's not true. To be in the presence of angel energy and to connect with angel energy is truly a special experience. And I have connected with energy or beings that are not of that energy, and it feels different. And they're God's gift to humans. They're universally accessible. They're outside of our time-space quilt, so they're accessible by all the beings who call upon them to help us navigate. It's not a sin or a dark thing to be able to connect with that support in the angelic realms. So there was one more thing. One sec, sorry. Well, I just guess that I feel like it is pretty hypocritical too. We find ourselves like, in the Bible, right? The angels were supportive of the journey of the characters in the Bible, just as they are for the characters in our lives today. We're not Mary and Joseph, you know, and Jesus. We're not. We're different people, but this is that earth that they spoke of, you know? All sorts of things that have been a little bit distorted from many written words, right, about things. And we've got all sorts of accounts of chariots of fire coming down from the sky in the Bible. And then it's just, you know, oh, that was a shooting star, it was an omen, and it's all figments of speech. Was it though? Or is that when the ETs landed back then? I mean, how did they really speak about those things? Chariots of fire that came from the stars. And we teach today that is like a, you know, it's where religion isolates a lot of people who are realists, right? Or don't know how to grapple with any type of faith that's not that super indoctrinated religious view of things. And I will just say this, I hope it doesn't come off too disclaimery, but I will, and I've strived to be able to listen to people. I will listen to you and why you think what you think and what it is that you think. And I will do that with as much compassion and understanding as I can, because I want you to do that for me. I want to be heard. And so I know that I give that to others because that's important, because I know how good it feels for me when somebody hears me all the way out. You know, I've been in conversations with people and it goes something like, I'm saying, I just hope that you cannot interrupt me. I'm not interrupting you. I'm not interrupting you. I'm not interrupting you. While I'm trying to say, I just hope we can have a single conversation without interrupting each other, right? And then at the end of somebody sharing what it is that they have to share, regardless of what it is, I will say how I feel. I think that as a people, we need to become a lot more comfortable with speaking our truths, right? Throat chakra healing. Knowing that it's okay to do that. Anything that's uncomfortable that comes up as a result of that is the next level of opportunity that you would have been denying in the other timeline where it didn't get realized. We don't continue the energy, right? People who sweep things under the rug, which is very common. It's very common in families. It's taught, it's inherited. I mean, these things are not taught intentionally. A lot of the worst things that end up becoming core, accidental family dynamics are not intentionally taught. They're inherited. And here's the thing. If you've listened to somebody and if you've spoken your truth, you can both still get along if those aren't the same thing. And as humanity, we don't get that yet. We don't get that yet. We think that either it means something wrong about us, if they don't think what we think, maybe that's a more subconscious one, or we're deeply concerned about the fact that they're lost and they don't get it and they need us. They need our help because we have it all figured out. And I mean, it's the individual's responsibility to seek or not, find or not, their path to feeling like they have a sure, certain place within them that they can live their lives and make their decisions from. And a lot of people don't feel like they have that. And so that's why we're very, very dependent on all these different things to tell us what's going on in the world and then condition us on how to act as a result of that. So that's my rant for today. And I did pull kind of absentmindedly a card from the bottom too. So let me show you and then I'll read both the definitions for these. We've got the Star Brothers one, which I already said. And again, it says Orus energy, protection, loyalty, safety, and trust. This one says Star Family. Star Brothers, Star Family. You're part of a team of souls. Call in support. I had a really big channeling last night that I wasn't prepared for. Sometimes I'm just writing a note in my phone or I'm just talking and then it changes into channeling. Like if I'm typing on my phone, taking notes about something, if I go into all caps for whatever reason and the spacing will change, it's the same thing where if I'm journaling, my handwriting will change. If I start channeling, we need to be able to give ourselves and our spiritual gifts and our awarenesses space to get to that point right now. If you resonate with my work and you're called to open yourself up and see what else your spirit wants you to utilize, or realize within yourself in this life, I find that if I don't have enough solitude, then I won't be able to hear and process these new things that are trying to happen for me. And I'm putting that out there because it's not like, oop, a channeled message coming through. I need to go do the thing. No, there's ways that things start to kind of come out once we put ourselves, it's like the creative conundrum around you're never going to feel like it's time to sit down and start or sit down and play or do it. You just put yourself in that position, force yourself to start doing it, and then you're already doing it. And then the inspiration starts to flow. That is what happens more often than not when I'm flowing creative energy. It's like the moment just becomes the right moment where I'm suddenly receiving a bunch of information or seeing things, or really just allowing myself to not judge the experience and going on autopilot and seeing what I type. Automatic writing is something that I've done since I was a child, since I was a kid. To that point, one of my youngest automatic writing channeled experiences was about the apostles, and somebody who was not raised in the church. It was interesting to not have that background and be a kid and be asking about the apostles, and my dad saying why are you curious about this? And I was just writing in my journal. and I started talking about it with myself. You know, and I knew how many, and I knew like some of the names. That's not stuff that I have had in my present life learning. So the message would be to take those spaces very seriously and allow it to teach you things. And then also, just because I do get a little defensive, or when I get triggered about people coming after me for my belief system, which is okay, right? I'm at a point where it's like, I don't expect for everybody to understand, but I hope that you'll let me just continue doing what makes me feel good and safe and happy and creative, because it's not harming anybody. The hard, firm no's in life is when what you're doing is harming somebody. And I pray every day for what I do, speak, feel, think, and say, to not harm people, and to be made aware of it when that happens so that I can correct it, and to be an asset of healing for humanity. My guides were actually channeling to me information last night. They said, you ask to be in service of God's will, whatever that is. You leave it open-ended, because I do. I ask for that. I pray for that. I would love to help. And they said, there's other language that we can use and talk about. The extraterrestrials will have their own language around ascension and the frequencies, and as far as God's will, right? The criticism of that with people with people who are very close-minded to certain things is that there's nothing outside of God's will, right? But we forget that it's all semantics. This is language. These are labels. Wasn't Jesus a Jew, you know? Like, it's like, because I was deeply upset to read that people who are like, New Age cult is bad, don't do any of that, wrong, it's the devil, on that list of cast out practices. Now, don't get me wrong, there is bad energy, there are people doing dark stuff with it, we know that, you know. If I'm in high priestess energy, there are many other women, high priestess energy, using gifts that are of high priestess quality. Like, there are other women on earth, tons and tons of them, who do that. It's just that some of them are named Beyonce and Taylor Swift. You know, we don't think like that. But my point was like, if I as a child am accessing guidance from angels, you know, or my imaginary friends, right? There's a reason why kids have imaginary friends, or can even talk to imaginary friends. Then why would it be about the people who walked the earth with Jesus if it was a being that was infiltrating, you know? I don't think that's the information that they would be providing me with. So it's a very intense time to stand within the truth, you know? Always be open to new information and changing what you know, and like remaining humbled by your own experiences. I don't claim to know everything. It's confusing too when I say things or process things and then there's more to it, right? There's this, even me and a lot of people, it's like, we want to feel like we have some level of mastery on what we're talking about and communicating. And like, there's a part of my soul that does. I was talking with one of you the other day about this. I was saying, so many of the physics concepts, high level quantum physics, I feel like I've always known that stuff. Like, I knew it as a kid, or I observed it, but I didn't know how to talk about it. And the more I learned about it and the more I drew little doodles, and then I got older, it was like, yeah, I mean, that's what I thought. Why is that? I think people relate to that, but it's hard, right? It's why I kind of keep jumping through hoops, or I'll get like, you know, a life coaching certification or do this and that. It's all about, how do we gain credibility in the things that are valued in this world to be accepted and feel like there's a lot of merit in what can be gained from these spaces. Okay. You're more protected than you can imagine. It's safe to open the back of your heart. You're being called to be open to receiving a new level of support now from those in your life and from the benevolent beings you're connected with. Through ancestral patterning, current life traumas, and past life karmic impressions, many of us have become mistrustful and suspicious of loyalty, and we have blocks when it comes to receiving support. We've learned that we need to go at life alone, that it's not safe to let our guard down and open our heart. that the world is not a friendly place. I talked about this last night in a post I put on the community page a little bit. The Star Brothers want you to have a new experience of life on Earth. They want you to feel deeply secure and safe, healed, root chakra. Even if you're going through a difficult time, they want you to hand over your fears to them, to see them as opportunities to let in more love. They're guiding you to stay open to receiving a greater level of support than you can ever imagine, both in this world and beyond, to call in your team of loyal protectors and supporters, both physically and energetically. They want you to learn to soften through life's ups and downs and learn to open your heart, especially when it most wants to harden. Yeah, I mean, it's giving me honey energy again, and I know that some people who watch this are not women. You might be male. I mean, I can still talk about goddess energy and you can still resonate with it through the fact that there is male and feminine, masculine and feminine polarities to the personality, to the aspects of all individuals, regardless of how you're born. And because we've dealt with such an unhealed and oppressed feminine energy in the collective, males or masculine energies of the earth right now are re-encountering feminine energy in this way that is slower and more steady, just as much as women are, or female energies. In fact, embracing it, helps to balance out the polarities. When you heal one, the other one kind of has to balance. This is why on Earth right now, I talked about this weeks ago, there's like this strange, ineffable threat to women or people who are like, I will speak for myself. I think it's relatable to people who are in similar positions with similar abilities. It's almost like there's something that I am fearing that's not present, but there's like this PTSD around something within the spiritual memory of a crux like this. The time that we find ourselves at in humanity's evolution resembles a time when it went poorly. It's not going to do that this time. It's not going to do that this time. And so, as a collective, we're welcoming in an understanding of healed feminine energy in order for it not to do that this time, because there was a time when darker feminine energy won out, as it has been for some time. Star family, at some stage, we were each a part of a soul cluster. That's like that Sense8 show. If you do want to watch it, if you're interested, I'm not even sure if it's still streamable, but it was on Netflix, and it's SENSE number 8. A gathering of souls who broke away from one another, to experience themselves individually. Those who are part of your soul cluster are a part of your star family. Your star family are those souls who are cut from a similar cosmic cloth. You haven't just experienced lifetimes together, your souls were once actually one. It's very common for star family members to incarnate at similar times, to work with anchoring a similar frequency of light, and to cross paths with each other. You know that someone is part of your star family when you feel like you know and remember them from the moment you meet. They feel instantly familiar and comfortable. Time both passes quickly and stretches when you're with them. You feel more yourself with them than anyone else. This is very true when you're with people that are without, jumping through any hoops of like trying to figure out if you're similar people and you're on the same page. When you don't have to, and I'm so grateful to have more and increasing. I'm finding people through this channel who you don't have to lay so much groundwork. You're already speaking the same language. There's a reason for that. And through that, and the more people that are added to it, you can manifest more together for your individual and, collective visions. And you can literally change the way that the passage of time feels and accomplish more. It can sometimes feel like looking in the mirror because, in a way, you are. Often, you'll go out of your way to help those in your star family instinctively knowing it's part of your path. When a star family member dies, you feel it very deeply, regardless of how long you knew them for. A certain soul mourning or soul breaking occurs. Think about the people in your life. But I will say that if that were to happen, they don't leave your star family, right? They might just join you from a non-physical standpoint from that point forward. Think about the people in your life. Who do you feel is a part of your star family? If this card comes up in a spread, it's likely that you've met someone who is part of your star family, or you're about to. Yeah, I think a lot of people in life right now, if you're feeling deeply lonely like you've never felt before, that's because you're about to meet more people from your soul family. And the biggest asset, these extremes, like if you feel deeply lonely, how can you, not to gaslight yourself, but remind yourself that you're held and loved, even if you don't have the evidence of it, held and loved by beings who are, around to support you. Because if we were to sink into the wallowing aspect of how painful that is, then that would be the focus of the point of summoning for more manifestation to come in. We cannot change that situation if we're beaming the spotlight of attention on how much that situation is painful, right? That's the amplification of the pain through the acknowledgement of it, which is important, but the acknowledgement is always intended to create the steps forward and the pivot needed to energetically create the change. We're conditioned and trained to create the change by getting up and going and taking care of it. But if the energy that you carry throughout the whole process of getting up and taking care of it is not projecting into a timeline that is going to bring in different energy that can hop the chords, I'm seeing a treble clef or a staff of music. You're ascending, levels of the chord to a higher frequency. You can't do that in life. Like the situation won't improve if you don't do it energetically. A lot of the times we experience these kind of miraculous things in life, or something will change in our physical world, surprising or unexpected, and then it changes our vibration or our emotional scale, really, and then we have an easier time. The trick is saying you don't need that outside catalyst in order to see yourself go from way down and out to like, oh, thank God, I'm so lucky. Yes, thank you. I'm so glad this worked out. Amen. You can get that energy going to get closer to the changing moment. We always see ourselves as being victims and along for the ride of what happens. And yes, that's very true, but not in the ways that we've been trained to think. So the other message that I wanted to get out, okay, there's two. Hopefully this won't go on for too long because can't do it. It's just so embarrassing to be like, quick one. And like you hear me saying that, you can tell that the video's like an hour. It is what it is. All right, so first message is about boundaries again. And I'm thinking about 3 months ago where I was at, and I was having some initial experiences with certain kinds of boundary setting. And I was thinking this morning about how the things that I was dealing with 3 months ago were in preparation for what I'm dealing with now, where I'm at a point where with no malice or grudge or anything in my heart for anybody, I need space from all of it, almost all of it. I have a few energetically safe people that I know won't pull on me. It's not that anybody who does that is bad. It's just that I'm in such a sensitive place that the level of solitude and that I'm requiring for my acclimation, and my guides reminded me of this last night because I've been doing more things here and there, and they're like, didn't we talk about a month ago basically being alone and really kind of like getting a lot of new stuff underway and giving it the space that it needs through my solitude and what happens in solitude? Didn't we talk about that? Doing that until the new year? And I was like, oh yeah, I really haven't been doing it. And as a result of not taking that time that I was told I was going to need and feel like I've been needing, I've been more agitated or more reactive to the collective agitation that is screaming out there. It's loud. And so if you feel like you're prone to reactivity based on a lot of the collective agitation that's present right now, then my biggest recommendation would be that you need to take some time alone. And I said this when I was talking about boundaries the other day. It's like, even if I don't leave my house for 5 days, the phone's still ringing. People are still, and it's not even like, can you do this for me? It's like, people who love you, right? Or we can have the most amazing relationships that we love and cherish, and still sometimes need a little bit of space. That's okay. That's okay. And I just wanted to share that because it's not easy to do. It's not easy to do. Sometimes people don't really understand that, especially when you're a little bit of a different person, different kind of person. For instance, there's highs and lows in life. I talked in the reading yesterday, or maybe it was 2 days ago, about high highs and low lows and how that's kind of a theme right now. I relate to that. There are some very challenging things I'm going through. There are some very exciting things I'm going through. And so, a well-meaning person who loves me might be like, well, given the challenges, are you sure you want to pull away? Don't you need help and support? I have help and support, I do. It's not necessarily conventional. And I'm not even saying I don't want to, spread the wrong information. It's not like I handle all my issues completely alone, right? You need to have important or valued people that feel safe, that you can really, feel safe in confiding about certain things. Everybody should have that. And if you don't, please send me an email if you want. I can be that person for you if you don't have anybody. But, and I pray that's not the case. Pray that people come into your life if you don't have anybody. But, yeah. Just quick note on that. And then the other message was about this card talking about soul families being connected, talking about them formerly being just one soul. I want to just put out a cautionary word, because the internet and YouTube in general, because us humans are very, thirsty and desperate for love, interested in love. A lot of the readers and the space on YouTube is about soulmates or twin flames. And those are both very real things. I will be completely honest. I didn't used to believe in the concept of twin flames, not because I had a stance about it, but because I had not experienced anything in my own experience that would give me any evidence or understanding of what that looks like, what it feels like, and how real it can actually be, and why it's different from other types of connections. But I don't talk about that. I don't plan to on this channel. That's not the purpose of this channel. But I want to point out that the wording is really, really tricky, and people get way too wrapped up in it. Again, I want to go back to semantics, right? Because people use different things as excuses for why certain things. It's all just getting wrapped up in certain labels and whatnot. For instance, right, a soulmate being a very deep past life soul connection that can express itself in platonic, familial, romantic, all types of connections. You can have soulmates, business partners, soulmates, two souls that like to work together, learn from each other, and do so time and time again. I have many soulmates in my life. One of my best friends, actually two of my best friends have been best friends for other lives, and sisters and collaborators. And then my mother and I've been her mother. I've been her mother. And we both know that. So there can be these flip-flops. And then my father and I, we were brothers in a past life in some type of industrial situation, and there was an accident, which is something that I, purged out and remembered that has impacted my father and Mai's relationship today, but it's from a different timeline. There's a hint. It has to do with my finger fear. If you've never heard me speak about that before, it's this weird phenomenon I get, but there was an accident that had to do with my fingers. I've had a lot of past life issues with my fingers, but I digress. Difference between soulmate and twin flame, as most people talk about it, is that twin flame would, instead of being two souls that have a different core soul frequency but work together and overlap and interact on purpose, twin flame is the concept of one soul that's split into two, so there is that defined masculine feminine polarity, and then incarnate separately and then come back together every so often for the purpose of remembering. In order, it has the mirroring effect, which if people know about the concept and they're familiar with, where one individual and the other individual trigger each other so highly into becoming or realizing or understanding the best version of themselves, whether or not they're together, quote unquote, in the lifetime. I think a lot of the hype around it is really just a testament to how the human ego is really invested in the capitalizing on spiritual stuff. And I'm not going to go too deep into that because it's not productive. There's already enough talk about it. Things can be very true, even very real in my own experience. Without me like fanning the flames of stuff. Probably actually I'll talk about it more in the future, but interesting right here to hear the star family interpretation. It's saying your soul family was all one soul. Yeah, I mean that could be true, and the people who have these really strict boundaries on the definitions of like twin flame versus soulmate would be like, nope, that's only you and your twin flame. And it's like, okay, whose rules are these? It's all just language. For me, everything is defined through experience, and then through channel, and then through additional experience, and then testing the theory, and then seeing things, and then having my mind blown, right? Even if I make up my mind about something and I decide that I don't believe something, like life has its ways of showing us where we're wrong, where we need to make certain concessions, and where we need to evolve. Nobody is exempt from that. And it's just, in the feminine honey energy of the new year, allow it to just, slide in nice and slow. Oh my gosh. Just seriously. Oh, I'll share this too. Why? Because it's going to help us stay away from a lot of these ego dramas that are like, but wait, but why, but this, but that. I know there's very serious, pressing global issues, happening on Earth right now. But I also know that I am just a 29-year-old girl who, has a real job just like anybody else. We're all trying to do things. And there are ways to take up space in your own life without feeling guilted into not being this enough or that enough about the issues that are going on in the world right now. And I may be hypocritical for that, because then I talk about like the selfishness of the American people and how we are shockingly desensitized to some of the stuff that happens, and how we respond. For example, I probably shouldn't go down this route, but I'm going to really quickly. It's shocking to me, okay? The private wealth in the world from the 1%, the billionaires, the millionaires. Sure, the millionaires that the faces that there are faces that you've never seen. There are people that you have no idea that have mass amounts of wealth, really. Now, like a lot of these people, they have influence, right? Money equals power in this world. They have influence. There's a lot of privately funded things. Think about the Gates, everything they've done. Privately funded things. We could privately fund a solution right now to not one, not two, but many of the things going on. Every day we have people asking for a ceasefire. I'm not saying that the things that are happening over there aren't happening, or that they're not horrible and that they don't need assistance. I believe that, but what do they make out of the footage, right? At one point we heard that there's no more information. They cut off internet. There's no more information coming out of there. Yet we have interviews with children who are recently orphaned and completely traumatized and shocked and wounded. Footage of them, videos of them, talking about what they've experienced, asking for donations. It's trauma porn. It's trauma porn that the American people are being inundated with. I mean, people all over the world are too, but here's the thing. I get that. Maybe that is the response that we've taken to trying to get the help that the problem needs. But tell me why then, at the same time, the next thing on my screen, equally weighted, is about fucking Travis Kelce and Taylor Swift. like, you can see where the interest lies of the people who have money. There's always some song and dance. I swiped left my news app today because I'm tracking certain phenomenon and I take screenshots and I don't necessarily read through all of it. But I saw something. I just glimpsed it. It was like, Jimmy Kimmel can't believe that this person did that. I'm like, I don't care. I can't even put into words how little I care. How much this doesn't mean to me. And how long it's taken for so many people to become so accepting of, so desensitized. Like, these idols, they're just humans just like you and I. They don't have the same issues that we do. A lot of them live in a protected space of being, worshipped. Makes me think of a meme I posted in Nietzsche, and like, all idols are fake and false, don't worship anybody. And then the responder, the other guy's like, great ideas. I'm going to follow all your work. I'm going to only listen to you. And he's like, it's like, attention is a form of worship, which is why I'm like, you can say, oh, well, I don't, follow celebrity culture. That's all stupid. I don't do the Kardashians. Okay, well, pick your poison. Who is it? Is it Tom Brady, the great American hero? Is it, I don't know. There is somebody for almost everybody, Think about the impact of Donald Trump. He was a hero that we didn't have for a certain collective of the population. I could talk for a very long time about the impact of his little walk onto the world stage or transition in archetype. It's been very interesting to witness. And yeah, those are my thoughts for today. Protect your energy. Come back to the present moment and focus on that which you can control. What was it that I was going to share from my... Okay, here we go. Here's the lasting thought. Last night I was shown this visual. Two, really. One of them was a waitress carrying a big tray and she had slipped. And it was some fun dynamic scene where there was a guy who was like reaching out to try to help, and there was a kid, there was multiple players, and all of a sudden there's a slow-mo that ensued. The moment itself, 1.5 seconds. It falls, it clamors, it clatters, done. Milkshakes, down. However, that time between the slip and the done, that's all of existence. Have you ever seen that thing where it's like, we're all just a couple elephants on the back of a turtle's back? Or something. It's kind of like that, right? We think about history and all these wars and all these things that have happened. Those took a very long time. It doesn't mean that there wasn't chaos and destruction and stuff happening every day. Life probably felt and looked, similar with the pacing of this life. Even though the manifested aspects of it have evolved. What I'm starting to get with the prophecies for 2024 is that there's, we keep realize that it's happening. Things are changing. This chapter in humanity will be looked back upon, and there will have been a revolution. We can't see that now, but there's people who are not interested in seeing it. There are people who have known about it for years and have been in it and looking at it and working with it and allowing it to be their truth. There are people who, in that slow motion fall, the other vision being the string quartet on Titanic, right? They were like, it's that beautiful paradox again, energy, the cosmic joke. We're all going down, so why don't we just play another song? It's not quite as abysmal as that, because I believe that humanity is in for a pretty massive success in the next decade. But it does feel that way because of all the threats and hard stuff that is being navigated. So I liked that because it kind of frees us up, right? What if we are all just in some moment of free fall before the milkshake hits the floor? Have a great day.